Now, cliffhangers are risky business, especially in gaming and especially these days. Video games take a long time to make and have only become more expensive to produce. There's rarely any guarantee that your game will get a sequel, even if you're successful. I mean, just look at Poor Tango Gameworks for proof of that. Leaving audiences on a cliffhanger, either temporarily or even permanently in worst cases, can have an audience feeling unfulfilled if executed wrong. But you know what? There are some that absolutely nail this premise, and that's what we're here to talk about today. So I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 genius trick cliffhangers in video games. Number 10. Fear. Now, Fear earned its acclaim upon release for its brilliant combat and dark, twisted story of child experimentation and how the past can never be concealed forever. It's a bleak affair from top to bottom, so really there's only one true way this could end, and that is that nukes fall and everyone dies. Realizing that there's only one way to put down his increasingly all-powerful and deeply pissed off mother Alma, protagonist Point Man proceeds to the reactor room at the heart of the Origin facility to make it go nuclear. After an intense fight, Point Man makes it out of the facility just in time to watch it reduce an entire city to a smoking crater. By some miracle, Point Man manages to survive and is carried away by his friends in a helicopter. The player is given a minute to survey the nuclear destruction they've just visited upon the entire American city and are left wondering if it was even worth it. It turns out that the answer to that is a terrifying and resounding nope, as Alma climbs up into the chopper, with the game cutting to credits right after. The death of her father and the destruction of the corporation that allowed her abuse and violation were not enough. Alma intends to show the entire world what it created, and she will not be denied. This is a chilling cliffhanger to end the story, which is later continued in the game's expansion packs. However, it must go at the bottom of this list here because it could be argued, thanks to the bleak tone of the game, that you don't need to play the following chapters in order to be satisfied. Number 9. Assassin's Creed 2. Assassin's Creed loves to leave the player with more questions than answers, even when they do explain what the hell is going on. Now seriously, look into the deep lore of this nut house of a franchise. It's like the nirvana of whack job secret history conspiracy theories, and it all started with the end of Assassin's Creed 2. After Ezio polishes the floor of the Vatican to a mirror shine using Rodrigo's face, he finds a secret door in the heart of the Vatican. Within, he comes across a being named Minerva, who tells him that humanity was the creation of her people. She also reveals details about the war that brought about the end of her civilization and regards Ezio as the prophet. Why does she call him that? Because through him she can convey the message to its true recipient, Desmond Miles, in 2012. Leaving Desmond to close us out on really the only proper response to all of this, which is, what the As out of control as the lore gets after this point, Assassin's Creed 2's ending strikes that perfect balance between being illuminating and vague. The player is left feeling like they know more and yet less than they did before, but in a way that still neatly wraps up the events of the game. Number 8. Darksiders. A cliffhanger ending that fans are still waiting to be resolved, Darksiders closed out its original title on just about the rawest possible final image it could have. War spends the entire game trying to prove himself innocent of the crimes of beginning the apocalypse way too early, which resulted in the end of humanity. What he uncovers is a vast conspiracy set in motion by the demon Abaddon to attain more power for himself while leaving war holding the bag. So after the player carefully teaches Abaddon the myriad reasons why you should not make a patsy out of the Horsemen of War, War is released from his bindings to the Charred Council. But now he has bigger problems, as the events of the story have made him into public enemy number 1 to all 3 sides, the Council, Heaven, and Hell. Uriel informs War that he's staring down the barrel of fighting all 3 realms of creation alone, to which War reminds her of who she's talking to, and whom he has on speed dial. The game ends with the image of the other 3 horsemen crashing into heaven to join their brother. It's the 4 horsemen against all of creation. Still waiting for that follow-up to that, THQ. Number 7. Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. You would think a prequel by its very nature cannot end on a cliffhanger. The nature of a cliffhanger is that the audience doesn't know what's coming next, and prequels are meant to explain what came before and why that mattered. So it's fascinating that Birth by Sleep, a prequel to the entire Kingdom Hearts series, managed to pull it off. This is mainly due to it focusing on characters we'd never seen before, and the cliffhangers centering around where they've gone to by the time the first game rolls around. BBS follows Terra, Aqua, and Ventus, 3 students learning the art of the Keyblade, as they are unknowingly made part of the Grand Master's evil plan to accumulate power for himself. Throughout the tragic tale, the three struggle to maintain their bond as question after question piles up. In the end, however, they do come together to stop the big bad, meeting him at the Keyblade graveyard to stop them from taking power. Where they lose. Badly. Oh sure, they delay the big bad long enough so that Sora can come in clutch a few years later, but the game ends with Ventus in a coma, Terra reduced to one of the mindless servants of the big bad's host, and Aqua is lost to the realm of darkness. After spending so many hours with these characters and growing to love them just as much as Sora, ending on a cliffhanger like this was a pretty masterful if ballsy move. Number 6. The Walking Dead. Telltale Games have been around for a few years beforehand, but The Walking Dead, for better or worse, put the studio on the map and set their creative identity in stone. There are a lot of moments from that initial run of episodes that have seared themselves into the psyche of an entire generation of gamers, but none come as close to its brilliant cliffhanger ending. At the end of the game, Lee and Clem are all that's left of the ragtag group of survivors the player has been following, and unfortunately, Lee isn't long for this world. Having been bitten by a zombie and then fatally stabbed by Bishop, Lee is left with Clem slowly succumbing to his injuries and the zombie plague. It's left to the player to determine how this plays out. Does Lee ask Clem to leave him behind, or beg her to shoot him so that he doesn't have to become a zombie? And if he does ask, does Clem shoot him? Whichever choice the player makes, the result is the same: Clementine wandering all alone. The game ends with her taking a rest in an abandoned car before spying two human-shaped silhouettes in the distance. The game then cuts to black before it can be confirmed whether they're human or zombie. Brutal, heart-wrenching, and ambiguous, it's pretty much the perfect note to end The Walking Dead's first season on. Number 5. Far Cry 5. Now, Far Cry has gained a reputation for not having the most uplifting endings, but Far Cry 5 takes that trend to a whole new level. At the end of the game, after wiping Joseph Seed's entire cult off the face of the earth, you are presented with the choice to either bring Seed in alive or walk away. But just like in previous Far Cry games, neither choice ends well for you. If you choose to walk away, you and Sheriff Whitehorse drive off, intent on alerting the National Guard, only for your vision to begin pulsing red. Seed's drug, the Bliss, has begun to take control of you. The screen cuts to black, implying that your character proceeds to murder all of their friends. So how can that get any worse? Oh, I don't know, how about the entire apocalypse? Because if you choose to arrest Seed, you get to finally beat his ass into a fine red paste. But when you go to slap the cuffs on him, a nuke goes off just beyond the mountains. The collapse, the fabled end times that the Eden's Gate cult has been preparing for, has arrived. After all your friends die in the resulting fallout, you wake up in a bunker with a still alive Joseph, who has locked you both in the bunker indefinitely. The end of the world is upon you, and you're going to spend it trapped in a bunker with a madman. This wouldn't count for the list if it wasn't for the game getting a follow-up, Far Cry New Dawn, which takes place 17 years later. But with New Dawn finishing the story, the ending of Far Cry 5 becomes the most insane cliffhanger the series has ever ended on. Number 4. Psychonauts. It's a very good thing that Psychonauts' cliffhanger ending strikes such a brilliant balance between wrapping everything up and teasing it more, considering the long wait we had for the sequel. The end of the first Psychonauts sees Raz reach an understanding with his father, stop Loboto's mad scheme, and bring Oleander back to the side of the good guys. Naturally, such a, shall we say, educational week at camp helps secure Raz's place in the Psychonauts. Just in time too, because right at the end, Sasha and Videla receive shocking news that the leader of the Psychonauts and Lily's father has been kidnapped. It's Raz's first day on the job, and it's shaping up to be a big one. Now, on paper, that sounds like an infuriating cliffhanger to end a game on, especially when you take into account how long it took Double Fine to make good on that promise. But Psychonauts' ending is saved by two factors: the fact that the ending wraps up every plot point that actually mattered, and the Saturday morning cartoon/comic book vibe that has permeated throughout the game. This setup for the next adventure works with the kind of format that Psychonauts' story was built around, while not reducing the main story's effectiveness. And that isn't an easy balance to achieve, but Psychonauts utterly nailed it. Number 3. Half-Life 2. It isn't shocking that Half-Life has forever left itself on an unsatisfying cliffhanger, seeing as how that's been the series' bread and butter from the start. But the cliffhanger in the original Half-Life 2 was at least meant to leave the player unsatisfied. This put it quite a ways ahead of the follow-up ending that the franchise left players on a decade ago. The end of Half-Life 2 sees Gordon and Alex raiding the Citadel to take down Breen and remove the Combine's seat of power. Despite literally all of the odds being against them, they managed to blow the reactor at the core of the Citadel's sky high. It's just a shame then that they didn't have enough time to get the hell out of there. But right at the moment of detonation, the G-Man stops time and extracts Gordon, saying that he's received some interesting offers for Gordon's services. He traps Gordon in the same limbo state that he was stuck in between 1 and 2 before literally leaving the game through a back door. It's abrupt, unsatisfying, and a little bit infuriating, just like the more infamous cliffhanger that would come later. But here it works because it demonstrates the kind of power that the G-Man has over Gordon and leaves you wondering how such a being can ever be fought. Number 2. God of War 2018. Every God of War player remembers where they were when they first saw God of War 2018's final cutscene. Throughout the game, Kratos and Atreus have it constantly reinforced to them by Mimir that while none of the Norse gods can be underestimated, Thor stands above them all. Odin's brutal enforcer shows up in every one of Mimir's tales of the Jotun, and his appearance always marks the story's ending. So naturally, this makes the fact that Thor's little brother Balder is chasing them even more terrifying. Never mind the fact that Balder is impervious to all threats, physical or magical, but even if they do kill him, that will just put them on Thor's radar. But of course, Balder drives them to the point where they no longer have a choice, especially when they actually do find out his weakness. After killing Balder and wrapping up the rest of the side quests, the player is instructed to take Kratos and Atreus home. Shortly after entering their home though, the game cuts forward to what will be the opening of God of War Ragnarok. A storm has rolled in over the Kratos residence and a newcomer has come calling. And he has a very bloody big hammer. And number 1, Dragon Age Trespasser. The kind of cliffhanger that makes a fandom wait 10 years for a sequel that has a higher than average chance of not even being good, Dragon Age Trespasser's controversial ending could only have ever been at the top of this list. After dealing with the governments of the world doing their level best to dismantle the Inquisition, being confronted by the fact that those world leaders are probably justified in said dismantling, and learning some deeply uncomfortable truths about elven folklore, the Inquisitor is faced with one final gut punch. Solus, once the resident wise elven hippie of the team, has been behind everything that has happened since the beginning of the base game. In fact, he's actually the elven trickster god Fenharil, the Dreadwolf, who banished the other elven gods in retaliation for their cruelty to their own subjects. But doing so ended up taking away the elves' immortality and their deeper connection to magic. Solus tells the Inquisitor that the magical MacGuffin ball that started this entire mess was meant to re-establish that connection smoothly, but since the Inquisitor destroyed it, Solus had to do it the hard way by tearing down the veil, the magical barrier between the physical world and the Fade. This will kill a lot of people, but Solus feels he was left with no choice. After either swearing to stop him or finding another way, the Inquisitor dissolves the Inquisition and takes what few of their friends remain to the nation of Tevinter. This is a nation that has been spoken of in all 3 games but never explored, but since Solus has never been there either, the Inquisitor knows it's their best shot at finding a way to beat him, and the fanbase has spent the last 10 years on that tantalizing note. Wicked. And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 genius trick cliffhangers in video games. I hope that you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me over on AX, where it's at RetroJ, but the O is a 0. Hope to see you over there. Big love to you all. Hope you treat yourself well, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.